fourth lesson in Revelation. I'm going through a little bit. The more I read it, the more it's like, well, I can't just gloss over this. I can't just gloss over this. We've got to actually talk about some of these things, and we have to do it well enough that there's some understanding there, that we can look at it, we can read it, and we can understand it. We're not going at a really, really slow pace. We're still going several different chapters per lesson, but hopefully getting enough of an understanding to where we can read it through and gain more and more understanding. Right now we're on chapter 11, I believe. And this is an interesting chapter because it's one that you've probably heard about a lot. It's kind of an interlude. It's not part of the ongoing sequence. We're in the middle. We've had the sixth trumpet already, and things are happening on earth. But now the trumpets are different. The seals were when Jesus was breaking the seals of the scroll, which was the title to the earth. And these are things that are happening on the earth at about that time. And so it gives us a picture of what's going on in the world. And then at the very end came the big earthquake, okay? And people started, they were hiding in caves, and it didn't matter who you were. People were losing everything because of the earthquake. So it was a big earthquake. And that was the sixth seal. And then after that, we had a couple interludes telling us about things that were going on in heaven. And then we went into the seventh seal, which was silence. And then the angels getting ready to sound the trumpets because the scroll was being opened. And as each one of them played their trumpet, there were different things that were happening. And these were things that were not just happening on earth. They were things that were being caused by heavenly powers. Okay, there were things that were being caused by God. His judgment beginning to play out on the world. And the interesting thing is that all the trumpets seem to be localized or over a large portion of the world, but not global. Okay, 2/3 of the streams became bitter, so that they couldn't be drunk. People were getting sick. It's just 2/3 or 1/3 of the streams, right? It was just 1/3 rather than the whole world. Okay, and you see the same thing with several other things that were happening. 1/3 of there was a big, it seemed like a flaming mountain went into the sea. We don't know exactly what that is. Some people believe it's a volcano, maybe a sea volcano or something like that. But 1/3 of the creatures in the sea died. 1/3 of the ships at sea were destroyed. So it's just 1/3. It's just 1/3, okay? And what we're going to see with the bowls is you can actually look at the bowls and look at the trumpets, and you'll find out that they are directly related, okay? And they're almost the same thing, but instead, when the bowl plagues come, they're over the whole world. They encompass the whole world. It's not just 1/3. It's like the 1/3 was a warning. This is the real thing. And the other interesting thing is you can look at, even with the trumpets and then with the bowls, you can also take a look back at Exodus and what happened to Pharaoh and the plagues that came on Egypt, and you'll see that there's a big correlation too between what's happening at the end. So the last chapter that we had was, I don't know if I've got it here. It was, well, anyway, we're starting with the two witnesses. We want to talk about the two witnesses. So what I'm going to do is I'll read through the chapter, and we'll start talking about things with the two witnesses and what it means. So let's start. I was given a reed like a measuring rod and told, "Go measure the temple of God and the altar and with its worshipers. But exclude the outer court the outer court. Do not measure it, because it is given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. And I will appoint my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. They are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth. And if anyone tries to harm them, fire comes from their mouths and devours their enemies. This is how anyone who wants to harm them must die. They have power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain during the time that they are prophesying. And they have power to turn the waters into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, and also where their Lord was crucified. So which city is it? Where was their Lord crucified? It's Jerusalem. We're talking about Jerusalem. Okay? For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these 2 prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. But after the 3.5 days of the breath of life from God entered them, they stood on their feet, and terror struck those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying, "Come up here." And they went up to heaven in a cloud, while their enemies looked on. At that very hour there was a severe earthquake, and 1/10 of the city collapsed. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the survivors were terrified and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, the third woe is coming soon. Okay. We're talking about the 2 witnesses here. It seems, and this is kind of out of time, because it talks about they're here on earth prophesying for 42 months. How long is that? That's 3.5 years. Okay, so they're here for quite a long period of time here on earth. It seems like they work in and around Jerusalem. They may go to other places. We don't know, but they're 2 witnesses that have been sent by God to talk to the people of the earth. Now, there's a lot of let's go back actually to that very first verse, and it tells us something about the end times that we know is different than from now. Okay, it says, "Go and measure the temple of God and the altar and with its worshipers." He's given a rod to measure. Usually, it's a cubit rod, so he can measure cubits or whatever. What is different about that than here on earth today? There's no temple. Okay? There's not a temple in Jerusalem. There's a Temple Mount. It's got the Dome of the Rock on it, and the Muslim, the Waqf, is the people that control what goes on the Temple Mount. Although the policemen there are all Israeli, but the Jews are ready to build their temple at any time. And if they can get a chance to, they would easily take the Dome of the Rock away and build the temple there where it's supposed to be. They have all the materials. They have everything ready to go. They've even trained all the priests in how to do the sacrifices. Yeah. It's all ready to go. All it would take is the word. And the interesting thing that we see today, of course, is that we're seeing more and more. There's a great turning right now of attitude towards the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is there on the Temple Mount. There are a lot of Sunni Muslims right now, and scholars that are saying that Muhammad never even got to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran at all. They're saying that he never got there, and so this mosque is not what it says it is. Right. But there's a change in feeling right now that's going on. That's one of the reasons that you see a warming of relationships between Israel and Saudi Arabia, Israel and Oman, Israel and UAE, Israel and Bahrain. all these different Arab countries are making treaties with Israel now so that and a lot of people believe, and several people, after they had made a treaty with Israel, they came, the emir of the UAE and the emir of the leader of Bahrain, they came to Israel and they went to worship on the Dome of the Rock. And the people, these are the leaders of these nations, the Waqf there refused to let them in to worship at the Dome of the Rock because they were dealing with the Israelis. And after that, they made it, they said that, well, it was good the Palestinians weren't in control because we would have been shot. And what they said is, this is unacceptable, okay? And there needs to be a change. And that's when all this stuff started coming out, that it's not even really the place that it says it is, and it's not as sacred as people say it is, and all these different things. And so there's a change of attitude there. And it points toward the possibility of the temple being able to be built there at some time in the near future.
Plans where they can build a temple actually right smack dab against the Dome of the Rock.
Really? Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that there's other things that are going to happen between now and when the Antichrist makes his treaty with Israel that will allow him to say, either the Dome of Rock is going to be destroyed in the battle or something, because there's going to be a battle before this. He's going to go ahead and let Israel build its temple, because we know at this time there's a temple there. Okay, we know that the temple is going to be erected. Now, the thing that we have to understand is that's not God's temple. Okay, this is a temple that the Israelites are doing on their own, and this is what they think they should be doing for their old ways. And remember, when Jesus comes and puts his feet on the Mount of Olives, the temple is going to be destroyed again, and he's going to build a new one. He's going to build his own. So anyway, that's a little bit about, we see the temple has to be there at this time. Okay, now they're going to trample on the holy city for 42 months. What does that make you think of? It goes back to Daniel, right? And his talk about that last 7 years, and how the temple is going to be there. There's going to be a treaty with the Antichrist, and then at that halfway point, the Antichrist is going to break the treaty. There's going to be the abomination of desolation, okay? And then for that last 3.5 years, the Gentiles are going to trample all over the whole city. They're going to be trampling over the Dome of the Rock, or over the temple, and they're going to be having their way with the Israelis, and the Israelis are going to have to flee. So that's what he's talking about. It gives us a little bit of an idea of when he's talking about. So these two witnesses there, they're going to prophesy for 3.5 years. Sackcloth is usually, it's a very raw material. It's very, very scratchy wool. It's not something that people do willingly in a lot of cases. It's in mourning, okay? It's what they do in mourning to symbolize mourning. Now, who are these two witnesses? We know who one is, okay? If you look in, here, we'll look at it. In Malachi 4, 5, and 6, it says, "See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children, and the hearts of the children to their parents, or else I will come and strike the land with total destruction." And we know actually that's what's going to happen from what the Bible is saying. What Revelation says is that the land is going to be struck with total destruction. But so one of them is Elijah. One of these witnesses, we connect these two things together. One of these witnesses is Elijah. Now, what do we know about Elijah? How did he die? Oh, he didn't. He's one of two people that we know of that did not die, but were taken up to heaven alive. Okay? Who was the other one? Enoch. Okay? Enoch was the other one very, very early. He walked with God and enjoyed the company of God, and God enjoyed his company so much that he took him up without him seeing death, up to heaven. Those are the two that we know about. Okay? Now, at the Mount of Transfiguration, when a couple of these Old Testament figures came back to visit and to encourage Jesus Christ right on the eve of his going to the cross, who was there? Who were the two? It was Moses and Elijah. Okay, so Elijah was involved in that as well. And remember, Peter and John were with him, and they saw Moses and Elijah talking and interacting with Jesus. And that's when Peter says, we need to build altars to all three of you. And that's when God, the voice from God came down and said, this is my beloved Son. Him will you worship, and only him. So some people believe it may be Moses, that it could be Moses and Elijah. We don't know. Okay, we believe that one of them is Elijah. We don't know who the other one is. But they're people of power. One of the things that's interesting is the things that they can do. Fire coming out of their mouth and consuming the people that are standing against them. That's something that Elijah called down fire from heaven. Okay, when he was on earth fighting against the priests of Baal on Mount Carmel, when they built the altars, he called down fire from heaven. So we look at that and we say, well, that's one of the things that he did when he was here on earth, is use fire from heaven. And some of the other things, what?
Do you think there's a chance that talking about I will send Elijah here is not talking about like a physical embodiment of Elijah, but another
The spirit,
prophet who is like Elijah?
the spirit of Elijah?
Elijah here is just like a metaphor to say what this prophet will be like.
Well,
Like another Elijah, and people will
Yeah.
recognize that it's like Elijah.
He's not saying that it is Elijah. He doesn't say that explicitly. Okay? And remember when John the Baptist was ministering at the beginning of the book of John, remember the authorities came to John and said, hey, are you the Messiah? And he says, no, I'm not the Messiah. He says, are you Elijah? And he says, no, I'm not Elijah. Why did they ask him about Elijah? It's because of this passage in Malachi, because they knew that Elijah was coming before the end. And they were still connecting the coming of the Messiah with the day of the Lord at that time.
I'm just saying, like, just because this says, I will send the prophet Elijah, doesn't mean that, like, when two witnesses come up, one of their names is going to be Elijah.
Right,
You know?
right.
It might be someone else who winds up being a lot like Elijah. That doesn't mean it's going to be actually Elijah.
Right. And in this case, many people believe that John the Baptist, he came in the spirit of Elijah. That's what they say about him. At that time, at the first coming of Christ. But a lot of us look at this and we take it literally, that God's going to send some people from heaven to come down and to be witnesses for him here on earth. Now, the thing that's interesting also, if you go on down, several people, of course, try to kill them, and they defend themselves just by fire coming out of their mouths. I mean, this is supernatural stuff, okay? It's stuff that's going to open people's eyes to who they are. And while they're prophesying, they can say, you people don't listen to us, you're not going to get any rain, okay? So they have supernatural power over the weather as well. They'll shut up the heavens, and there's not going to be any rain. And it's them that can do it, and they can turn waters into blood. They can strike the earth with every kind of plague, do all these things. People turn their backs on them, and suddenly they get boils or whatever. They get struck by plague. You need to listen to us. The interesting thing that I find out is They're killed. They have to be. Other people try to kill. There's probably assassins that are sent to take care of them, and none of them are successful. It says that the beast has to come and overpower them himself. Now, I don't know if that's physically himself or if that's his bodyguards or what, okay? But he's involved. He's directly involved in their demise, the death of these two witnesses. And then they lay there and they refuse burial. Now, we don't understand this very much, but in the Middle East, the culture, all the cultures in the Middle East believe that a person should be buried within 24 hours of when they die, okay? And that's all the different cultures in the Middle East, not just the Israelis, but also all the Arab cultures as well. They get people in the ground as fast as they can, and it is a incredible. It's not just a bad insult. It is abhorrent to not give somebody burial. Okay.
They even give time for their enemy.
Yeah.
To give
Yeah.
proper burials.
Right. And so it's just not something that's done there. And so when this is going to be an oddity. And the other interesting thing is people of every nation, tongue, can see them and will watch them. Now, this is being written in 100 AD. Today, we know how that can happen, right? Put up a webcam. Everybody can watch them. We can watch them rot on the streets because we hate them so much. Yeah. And so people are going to see them not only lay there dead, but they're going to see them when they get the breath of life from God, stand back up and look around at everybody. Okay? The whole world is going to see this happen. And then when they get called back up to heaven as well. Now, when they're killed, people all around the world are going to do what? They're going to rejoice. They're going to give gifts. I mean, this Christmas, it's like Christmas to them. This is something to give gifts about. And then when they are taken up into heaven, even though there's an earthquake and 7,000 people, we assume that they're talking about 7,000 people in Jerusalem, okay, that are killed in this earthquake. Now, we don't know if that earthquake is just local to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is on a fault line, very close to a fault line, and so they do have earthquakes. But they usually build so that the earthquakes do as little damage as possible. Well, in this case, there's going to be parts that say they're going to collapse. 7,000 people are going to be killed. And even though these people are killed in Jerusalem, what do the survivors of Jerusalem do? They give glory to the God of heaven, which is very different than the way people in the rest of the world have acted when they've been in earthquakes and have been terrified, right? All the other people have cursed God. Even though they know that it's coming from God, they curse God. But these Israelis give glory to the God that's in heaven. And what I think that signifies is there is an incredible turning to Christ of the Israeli people at that time. The witnesses are very effective to the Jews. And the Jews are beginning to turn to Christ and see Christ as their Savior. And so when these two witnesses are resurrected and they go back up to heaven, the people give glory to God for it. And that's just a difference of opinion. You don't see that with the other people of the world. Okay, now at the very end of this it says, the second woe has passed, the third woe is coming soon. And I think that that's interesting because what it does is it puts this back in perspective to the trumpets that are being blown, okay? Remember the eagle flew over and said, after the first 4 trumpets were blown, the eagle came by and said, whoa, whoa, woe is the earth, because the next 3 trumpets are going to be bad, okay? And then after the first one happened, the 5th one, there was the first woe is past, the second woe is coming, and after the 6th one, That one didn't come. But after this two witnesses, it says the second woe is past, the third woe is coming. So what that does is it connects the stories of the two witnesses to the trumpets, okay? And so we know that when the witnesses go back up to heaven is about the same time as the end of the sixth trumpet judgment, okay? So that it just helps us chronologically connect those two. Yeah. Okay, let's look at 15. This is Revelation 15, and we have the seventh angel sounding his trumpet. So this is the seventh trumpet. The seventh angel sounded his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven which said, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever." And the 24 elders who were seated on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshiped God, saying, "We give you thanks, Lord God Almighty, the one who was and is, because you have taken your great power and have begun to reign." But then they talk about the world. "The nations were angry, and your wrath has come. The time has come for judging the dead and for rewarding your servants, the prophets, and your people who revere your name, both great and small, and for destroying those who destroy the earth." So there's a change right now in the attitude in heaven. Okay? Up to this point, God has still had his arms wide open, accepting everybody to come to him, asking everybody to come to him. Okay? He accepts everybody. All they have to do is believe in his Son. Okay? But now there is a change. The time for judgment has come. And you're going to see that, well, here it is. "In God's temple in heaven was opened, and within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. And there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and an earthquake, and a severe hailstorm." And this, we believe, is happening all over the world. Okay? So, now the interesting thing is, it talks about within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. Does everybody know what the ark of the covenant is? Okay? Yeah, we've seen Indiana Jones. Where is that now? Is it in a warehouse in the United States somewhere? No, I don't think so. The last time it's been seen on earth that we know about it was just prior to the Babylonian conquest. Josiah had the ark, and he was actually killed in battle, but the ark was taken back. But there's a lot of people at that time that knew the end was coming, and so we believe that they hid the ark somewhere. And there's people that believe that it's hid under the Temple Mount, because there's a lot of places under the Temple Mount that they haven't even explored yet, because they haven't been able to, because of the walk. Yes.
I remember losing the king's name. The good king that prayed for 10 years.
Yeah, that's Hezekiah.
Hezekiah.
Mm-hmm.
Because of when he allowed the Babylonians to tour.
They came through and they saw everything.
Yeah. And he was warned that the destruction was going to come.
Right.
But he was grateful for the peace that was present and will come until that point.
Yeah.
And I think he's credited with the possibility of hiding the ark.
Right. He did a lot of tunneling. He's a good king. Yeah, he was a good king. He did a lot of tunneling, and he's the one that connected the spring at Gihon underneath Jerusalem to the pool of Siloam, so that they would have fresh water during the time that they were being sieged by the Assyrians. Okay. And yeah, there's a lot of tunneling that was done during that time underneath the Temple Mount, and many people believe that that the Israeli Antiquities Department has already found the ark, and they are hiding it away. Okay, it does have a lid of gold. Okay, solid gold, and so it's worth quite a bit. I mean, this is huge. It has a lid of solid gold. And inside, does anybody remember what was in the ark? Okay, we got the Ten Commandments. Okay, Aaron's staff that budded. Okay, and there was also a jar. And the jar had what in it? Manna. Okay, a jar with manna in it. Now, the interesting thing is you look at those things. Jesus Christ came to complete the law. He is the completion of the law. And through him, we all are made righteous because of the way he completed the law. Okay, that's the Ten Commandments. The other thing you look at is the staff, Aaron's staff that budded. That was the rebellion. Okay, and in order to take care of the rebellion and to stop the rebellion, they put their staves down, and God could choose who he wanted to be the leader, and it was Aaron's staff that not only budded but started to flower. Okay, because God is the God of life. Okay, so he chose Aaron, and so Aaron's staff is in there, and it signifies life. And who is life? We know Jesus Christ is life. When he came, he said that I am life, okay, and I give life. The other thing is the bread. Manna was called bread from heaven, all right? What did Jesus call himself? The bread of life, okay? And so we see inside the ark a clear picture of who Jesus is. And so many people look at this and say, within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. Many people believe that that's just Jesus himself standing in the temple. Now, other people believe that that may be the ark of heaven, all right, not the ark that was here on earth, but the ark of heaven, because we know that everything, the temple and everything was the one on earth is only a reflection of the one that's in heaven, okay? And some other people actually believe that this is the ark from the earth that was taken up to heaven. It's being hid in heaven. This is interesting. But the attitude in heaven has changed, and now you will see that God has everything goes into a mode of the time has ended for people to come to God. Now is time for judgment. And we're going to see that in the next couple chapters. Okay. Do we skip any of this? I think we got all that. Okay. We're going to read chapter 12. And chapter 12 is very interesting. It gives us, what it does is it gives a story. And this story goes back long before the end times. In fact, it encompasses just about all of history. So a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. And I just wanted to do this. I don't know if any of you have seen this before. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. This is something that we had here that we could see. This is the constellation Virgo. This happened on 23rd September 2017. We have the normal Leo, which is above Virgo, has 8 stars. But 4 more appeared in the sky, but they're actually, of course, are planets. Okay, but they look like stars when you look up at them. Okay, they're white spots. So around the Virgin's head were 12 stars. Wait, she had a crown of 12 stars on her head. Okay, and then the moon was underneath her feet. The sun was at her shoulder. Okay, so she was clothed in the sun. She stood above the moon, and then Jupiter, the other planet, was in retrograde, and so it was moving out of the woman, the constellation Virgo. And the people, this is actually produced by NASA, believe it or not. And they actually use Revelation 12, 1 and 2. And they're saying it only happens once every 7,000 years. Well, if you go back 7,000 years, what was happening 7,000 years ago? That's about the time of Adam. So it's a sign in the heavens. Literally, that's happened here. We have a date for it and everything else. What does this mean? It's just another sign of the end times, okay? That's all it means to me. It means that God's in control. He's sovereign. He knows exactly what's happening and when it's happening. And he has everything in his plan, okay? But let's go on. Then another sign appeared in the heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment he had been born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. 1,260 days is how long? 3.5 years. Okay, it's exactly 42 months. You're talking about 30-day months. That's generally what God uses when he is talking about prophetic things. He talks in 30-day months. So then a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuses them before our God day and night has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short." Then the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth. He pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time, out of the serpent's reach. A time times half a time. How long is that? 3.5 years. Okay. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and to sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. Okay, that's the story of the woman and the dragon. And it goes back to, of course, it goes back to Jesus. It goes back to Jesus when he was born. What happened after Jesus was born when the devil tried to kill him the first time? Herod killing the kids. Okay, so Herod was working. It was the devil that told him, go and kill the kids. Satan was working through men at that time. When he was snatched up to heaven, that was after he'd done his job, his mission here on earth. He ascended into heaven, where he sits at the right hand of God. Okay, so that lines up with that story. Now the rest of the story is when the dragon is kicked out of heaven. When does that happen? Okay, it seems like he gets into a battle with Michael. Michael the archangel, and he seemed to get into a battle with, I assume that there's quite a few angels that are involved as well. And finally, Satan is cast out of heaven. He no longer has access to heaven. Now, we have always thought, from what happened in Job, to other things that we read in the Bible, that Satan seems to have access to heaven now. And he goes and he accuses the saints in front of God. And Jesus is there on the right hand of the Father, and he advocates for us, okay, on our behalf. Yes, that child is mine. He's been bought with my blood, okay? Therefore, he's righteous, he's holy, he's redeemed. There is no accusation that you can make against him. He loses that right here, and he is thrown down out of heaven, and he's upset about it. His designs for taking control in heaven have been totally done with, and so the only way that he has to get back at God is through taking over the earth, okay? And he's been working on that over time. We know that. He's been busy on that. Okay. Now the woman flees. When do we know that this is going to happen? When the woman flees. Now the woman is who? The woman is Israel. The woman is the Jews, okay? Because it's through Israel and through the Jews that Jesus came. So the woman is Israel, but at some point she is going to have to flee into the wilderness to get away from Satan. Okay, that's what this story says. And we know that Jesus Christ said, when you see the abomination of desolation happen in the temple, run. Don't stop and pick up your stuff. Run. Get out of there fast. You're going to have to get out of there fast because things are going to strike. And that's in Matthew 24. When in the Olivet Discourse, Jesus says people are going to have to flee. It's interesting that it says here that there's a place prepared for them to run to. What?
But isn't that like God?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knows what's going to happen. He knows how it's going to happen. He plans it ahead of time. He goes before us, okay? And he's prepared this. Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of people believe that that place where Israel is going to run to, that it's going to flee to, is Petra. People heard of Petra. It's a spot in Jerusalem. It's about a 4-hour drive from Jerusalem. It's only about 100 miles away, but you have to kind of get there by a circuitous route because there's only one way into Petra, okay, because it's through a series of wadis. And the series of wadis actually get very small. And so you can, on foot, there's only one way to get into it. There are a couple of airstrips. In fact, when you go on your way to Petra now, the highway that you go on widens out at one point, only about 10 miles away from Petra. The highway widens out and it becomes an airstrip. And when one of the guys that I was listening to that was talking about this, he questioned the driver. He said, "Hey, why is this airstrip here?" And the guy says, "Well, it's for whatever. Jordan decided to put it in because this is a place that may need help at some point. You know, we may have to land planes here at some point because of the military or whatever." Whatever. He had no idea why it was there, but it was obviously an airstrip. And it says here that she's given wings. And so we can only assume that what it means is that there may be several planes that are flying people out of Jerusalem down towards Petra, landing on the airstrip, getting people into the protection of Petra, because Petra is built into the side of granite cliffs, okay, where people can live. And there's all kinds of equipment there now. They actually have, because it's a tourist area. Yeah, and they have all kinds of generators. They have all kinds of things for people to live there and to be there. It's very easy to defend because there's only one way in, and it narrows down to only about 7 feet. So there's not going to be any tanks going in there. And so that's what, it's a very defensible position. So what does he do? He tries to wash them out. by spewing water out of his mouth. The dragon does. We don't know how that's going to happen. But the earth opens up and takes the water. That's the big fear in the wadis, right? If you're in a wadi, especially if it's a steep wadi where you can't get out of it, and there comes a rain, you get flash floods, and people get killed that way all the time.
Explain what a wadi is.
A wadi it's actually a dry riverbed, okay, that is only filled with water at certain times of the year, during the rainy season, basically. But then they become torrents, and people have to stay out of them because they're very dangerous at that point. Yeah. Yeah, so, but most of the time, it's just a riverbed, and in this case, down around Petra, these wadis are cut deep into the rock. And so you have sides that go up 60, 70 feet. So that's what a wadi is. So this is an interesting story, and it's a story that encompasses the gospel, basically. But it's saying that the devil is very, very concerned with Israel and the Jews. Okay, he's been trying to destroy the Jews for a long time. Okay, in fact, that's been one of his things. And who inspired Hitler to make the death camps? You can go back to Satan trying to get rid of the Jews. He hates the Jews because they're people that were selected by God. Okay. Is there anything about that we need to talk about? This is after the abomination that causes desolation, and that is right at the 3.5-year mark. That's the halfway mark for the last 7 years of the Great Tribulation. So, okay, 13 time. 13, 1 to 10. The beast out of the sea. We are going to, what they talk about now is we get the beast out of the sea and the beast out of the earth. These are two players in the last times. In that last 7 years, these are two important players. And we get a little more description about them. And so, let's start. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads. The 10 horns, or with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshiped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" And the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for 42 months, another 3.5 years. Okay, the same 3.5 years. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. And it was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. Whoever has ears, let him hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people. So we're talking about the beast. And the beast is a name in Revelation that is given to the Antichrist, the person that we know as the Antichrist. And he's described as a beast. And who gives the beast his power? The dragon. And who's the dragon? Satan. Okay? Satan's the dragon. He gives the beast his power. Now it says the beast resembled a leopard and had feet like those of a bear and the mouth like that of a lion. And if you go, this refers back to the vision of Daniel, back in Daniel 7, and the three kingdoms. There's one kingdom that is a leopard. There's one kingdom that is a bear, and there's one kingdom that is a lion. And the lion is the first kingdom. That's the Babylonians. The leopard that comes after it, the bear that comes after it is Persia, okay? And the leopard that comes after that is Greece, okay? That's the way it's explained. Well, this beast has characteristics of all of them, okay? So the characteristics of Babylon, of Greece, and of the bear of Persia. So it's just interesting. In fact, many people believe that this is the fourth beast that Daniel saw that he did not describe the beast. He was told not to describe it at that point. Okay. What else do we need to talk about? Why does Satan have authority over the world to give to the Antichrist? Who is the god of this world? Satan is. Okay, he's been active here. He's been having his way here, and there's a lot of plans that are going on right now that I believe personally that Satan is directly behind. That are happening in our world, and we're seeing them come to fruition in these days. The beast is very active, or the dragon is very, very active here, and so he has all this authority that he has gathered, and he gives the beast his authority to rule, and that's how the beast is made the commander of the leader of this huge the whole world. Basically, he's the first global leader. And we'll find out more about that in the coming chapters. And then it's that last 42 months, that last 3.5 years, that the beast actually blasphemes God, and he sets himself up as God himself, okay? And forces people to worship him, and we'll see more about that here soon in the next upcoming chapters. Okay, Daniel 7 has a lot more information about the Antichrist. There in Daniel 7, and then Daniel 11:36 through 45 is also about the Antichrist. So you can read that, and you can bring that into this story, and it fits exactly. Okay, now there's another beast. This is the beast out of the earth. Starting in verse 11, and I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, causing fear to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of people, causing fire. This is one of the things, it caused fire, not fear. Fire to come down from heaven in to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. Very interesting. This tells us a little bit more about the way the world is going to be at this time. And this man is named later on in the beast from the earth is named the false prophet, okay, in Revelation 16:13. And he works with and for the Antichrist. He's kind of his second name. Many people believe that this is like the PR guy for the Antichrist. He works very closely with him. I think of him as not just the PR guy, but the IT guy, information technology guy, right, that works with the Antichrist. He's the mastermind behind the image and the mark of the beast. Now, the image seems to be something like a statue that's going to be put in the temple, okay? And it's going to be an image of the Antichrist. There's going to be, his visage is going to be on it, and people are going to be told to go there and to worship the Antichrist, okay, at the temple. And somehow this image is going to be made so that it can respond to people, talk to people. Yeah, I mean, to me it sounds like AI. It sounds like artificial intelligence. And it's going to be able to talk to the people, and it also keeps accounts, okay? If they don't worship it, it has the power to summon authorities and have the person killed, okay? This is very interesting, and it's all described, but of course, in 100 AD, they had no idea about computers. They had no idea about artificial intelligence. They had none of this. Yeah, and here, all this stuff is coming into fruition. We can see it happen, all these abilities. Now, the other thing is the mark of the beast. It's either on the hand or on the right hand or on the forehead. One of the, and a lot of people believe that it was just, well, it's just a mark that tells people that they worship the beast, and therefore they can do business, all right? Whereas if you don't have the mark, you don't worship the beast, you will be refused service at places because you do not worship the beast. That's what a lot of people used to explain it as. Today, we think that it might possibly, people were thinking, well, maybe it's a subcutaneous chip that allows people to actually do business like a credit card, okay? And you have to have that. Well, now what we found out is they can actually put all that information and do all that with a simple tattoo.
A rice chip.
Yeah, either a rice chip that's very small, or they're even saying now you can have a tattoo where you can have all that information on it, and it will be able to talk with a scanner or whatever. So, do we know exactly what's going on? No. But the thing that we need to understand as Christians, okay, we're warned here later on, not that it's bad news to take the mark of the beast, okay? We need to know that it is all has to do with the worship of the beast, okay? It's not going to be snuck in on us, okay? It's not, you will have to give your allegiance to the beast, to the Antichrist, in order to receive the mark, okay?
It's purposeful.
Right. It's purposeful on our part, on your part, when you do it. Okay, you will be making a decision to worship the beast. Okay. Questions? Looks like we're out of time for this one. How far did I get? I just got through the first page of the notes. Okay. We'll go from there next time. But any questions about what we've read so far? Several very interesting things. Some of them we can see in modern technology. We can see exactly how they can play out. In fact, the interesting thing is all the technology that we have is here to do all this stuff.
Sounds like it's what it's leading up to on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, cashless society.
A cashless society.
You know, you can't tax cash.
Right.
You can't trace it.
Right.
Governments don't like that.
And this will all be, everything that every single expenditure that you make, every purchase that you make will be tracked by the government. They will know exactly what you're spending money on.
Right now it's being tracked by companies.
Yeah. Google does that, and they trade that information around. Why do you think on your phone, if you make a purchase on your phone, that you start getting ads for other things that are just like it? We're being tracked already. That kind of technology is already happening. So, okay.
With your COVID shot, in order to travel abroad, your passport.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are scared about the COVID vaccine and what it means and what it's going to do. And I don't think that it has anything to do with the mark of the beast yet.
Not yet.
I think that that's going to happen mainly after we're out of here.
But it's all the building blocks.
Right.
It's all part of the building blocks.
But everything is there. Yeah, everything is there. And they've been talking about this kind of technology for many, many years now. And it is in use in some parts of the world, in the European Union and some other places. There's everything from subcutaneous chips where you can pay for things or open doors, that kind of thing.
I remember a commercial. I think I was in France.
Uh-huh.
And the commercial basically was like in a grocery store.
Right.
And this guy with a trench coat is putting items in
Oh.
pockets.
Right.
And make the commercial really quick. He went through the security area, and the security guy comes up to him and says, "You forgot your receipt."
Right.
Because it scanned everything.
It scanned everything that he had on him, and he paid for it, and he didn't even know it.
Thinking the advertisement makes you think, oh man, he's going to get busted.
Yeah.
The security guy's coming up and says, no, forgot your receipt.
Right. Yeah. This is the cure-all for thieves. Okay. This type of thing. This type of technology.
Well, in Europe, they have guards in every store.
Yeah.
Almost. And everybody, you have security guards all over.
Hmm.
Because people steal all the time.
Yeah. I know it's a really big issue in England. The theft
It's
that
huge.
goes on there. Yeah. Okay.
So it makes sense that they would do something like that.
Yeah. We're at time. I'm going to go ahead and we can pray, and then we'll dismiss. Dear Lord, we love you, and we thank you for your word, the warnings that it gives to us, the things that we can see now that are happening around the world. Lots of times we can see how sovereign you are. You're in control of everything that's happening. We love you. We pray that you'd help us to rest in your sovereignty and to rest in your love, and to know that you've promised us that we will, in Revelation 3, that we will not have to go through this time of testing, that the rest of the world will. That is not meant for us. We love you. We pray that you would just enjoy the worship that we bring to you today in worship time, and that you would teach us more things about your word and about the people around us, and loving the people around us and pointing them to you. In Jesus' name, amen.